Imagine opening your mailbox to find a letter saying you owe $250,000 in fines for breaking rules on land you've lived on for decades. Sounds insane, right? That's exactly what happened to me. But what the HOA didn't know was I owned far more than they ever imagined. The morning started just like any other. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window as I sipped coffee, listening to the rooster crow from the backyard. My biggest concern that day was whether my tomatoes had survived the early chill. I strolled down the gravel driveway to check the mailbox, expecting nothing more exciting than bills and junk flyers. Life in this neighborhood was usually quiet, predictable, exactly the kind of peace I'd worked hard for all these years. But as I reached inside and pulled out a thick, certified envelope, something in my gut twisted. The return address in shiny gold letters read Sunset Hills Homeowners Association. And that was the moment my ordinary day shattered into pieces. Back in the kitchen, I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a formal-looking letter with heavy paper, the kind that screamed lawyers. The bold numbers at the top nearly made me drop my coffee. $250,000 in fines. According to the HOA, I had committed multiple violations. My fence, they claimed, crossed into community land. My old tool shed and chicken coop, unauthorized structures. And my vegetable garden, the same garden I tended for decades, was listed as an encroachment on green space. I sat stunned. That fence had been built by my father over 30 years ago. The shed and gazebo were projects my late wife adored. And my garden, it was as much a part of me as breathing. But buried under the anger was one clear thought. Something about this letter didn't add up. The HOA thought they'd caught an easy victim. What they didn't realize was that they'd just woken up the wrong man. 2 hours later, I heard the sharp click of heels on my gravel driveway. Sophia Blackstone, the HOA president, strutted toward me like she owned the place. Behind her trailed 2 board members, each carrying clipboards. "Mr. Harrison," she began without so much as a hello. "I'm here to document your violations before we proceed with legal action." Her voice dripped with superiority, the kind of tone only people born into privilege seem to master. She pointed at my fence, my shed, my chicken coop, calling each one an offense. When I pulled out my original property deed from 1973, she waved it away. "Irrelevant," she scoffed. "We have modern surveys. You're trespassing on HOA property." Before I could reply, my neighbor Betty called from across the street. "That fence has been there since I moved in, Sophia. You know that." But Sophia just smirked, dismissing us both. She promised liens, lawsuits, and even forced sale if I didn't comply within 30 days. My blood boiled, but instead of fear, I felt something else, determination. After she left, I sat on the porch gripping my deed. I wasn't just some old man confused about property lines. I was a retired surveyor with 45 years of experience. If there was one thing I knew, it was land boundaries. I called my old friend Jim Patterson, a seasoned property lawyer. He read the letter, whistled low, and said, "Walter, this stinks. Get an independent survey, fast. Don't let them bully you." That night, I dusted off my old surveying equipment from the garage. GPS units, metal stakes, measuring tools, gear I hadn't touched since retirement. My hands shook, not from age, but from adrenaline. If they wanted to play games with surveys, they'd chosen the wrong opponent. I was ready to fight. The next morning, I walked the edges of my property with my handheld GPS. Every measurement matched my deed perfectly, down to the inch. My fence wasn't just close. It was exactly where it belonged. But then something unexpected happened. Using my metal detector, I found an old survey stake buried beneath landscaping near Sophia's mansion. Then another stake near Nathan's driveway. Each one confirmed the same shocking truth. My property extended well beyond my fence. As I followed the markers, my heart raced. Could it be that the million-dollar homes surrounding me weren't just close to my land, but sitting directly on it? I looked at Sophia's infinity pool shimmering in the sun, Nathan's oversized garage, and Elena's new bedroom wing. For the first time, I wondered, maybe I wasn't the trespasser here. Maybe the HOA had something to hide. I knew my preliminary work wasn't enough. If this went to court, I'd need undeniable proof. That's when I called Jake Miller, one of the best surveyors in 3 counties. Jake arrived with equipment that looked like it belonged in a science lab. Laser scanners, GPS base stations, ground-penetrating radar. He studied my deed, nodded slowly, and said, "Walter, if you're right, this could be huge." For 3 weeks, Jake and his crew mapped every inch of my 8 acres. They cross-checked my father's original documents with modern GPS data accurate to within inches. Every day, the evidence piled higher. And every day, I saw Sophia pacing her yard, phone glued to her ear, watching us like a hawk. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know how bad it was going to be. When Jake finally revealed the results, I nearly dropped to my knees. My property didn't just stretch a little further. It swallowed entire sections of my neighbor's estates. Sophia's glittering infinity pool and tennis court, entirely on my land. Nathan's 4-car garage and driveway, mine. Elena's sprawling master suite, built squarely on my property. Jackson's outdoor kitchen and pizza oven, my land. Even Bethany's front yard fountain sat on ground I inherited from my father. In total, millions of dollars worth of luxury structures were legally built on my property. And then came the smoking gun. The 2010 survey Sophia had waved in my face. Jake tracked down the company listed on the document, only to find it had gone out of business in 2008. The signatures? Forged. The coordinates? Fabricated. "This isn't sloppy paperwork," Jake said grimly. "It's fraud." I stared at the evidence, heart pounding. They hadn't just fined me unjustly. They'd stolen my land, buried the truth, and built empires on top of it. But now, the truth was in my hands. The moment Sophia realized I wasn't backing down, the harassment escalated. Noise complaints about my rooster crowing at dawn. Code enforcement letters about my chicken coop. Even calls to the health department claiming my compost was unsanitary. Every day brought a new certified letter, a new attempt to break me. Then came the bribes. First $50,000, then $100,000, finally $200,000 to settle the misunderstanding. Each time I refused, Sophia's smile grew thinner. "Lady," I told her at my doorstep, "I don't sell what you stole. If anyone's paying, it's going to be you." That's when I knew this was war. Sophia announced an emergency HOA meeting, determined to humiliate me in front of the entire neighborhood. The community center was packed, tension thick as smoke. She stood at the front, flanked by expensive lawyers, projecting photos of my so-called violations. She painted me as a bitter, senile man, disrupting the community. The crowd murmured in agreement. Then it was my turn. I walked to the front with Jake's laptop and my GPS unit. "Folks," I said, "you've heard accusations. Now let's look at facts." On the projector, a drone photo of the neighborhood appeared, overlaid with bright red GPS-verified boundary lines. The audience gasped. Pools, garages, bedrooms, all sliced in half by those glowing red lines. One by one, I showed them the evidence. Sophia's pool, Nathan's garage, Elena's wing, all sitting squarely on my land. The room erupted in chaos. Some shouted in disbelief. Others cursed the HOA. Sophia's lawyer scrambled, but the truth was undeniable. For the first time, Sophia's smug smile disappeared. The showdown moved from the community center to the courthouse. The media swarmed, calling it the property battle of the century. Sophia's lawyers argued GPS technology was unreliable, but Jake calmly demonstrated live coordinates, matching original buried stakes to within inches. Betty testified she saw construction crews move markers years ago. Then came the final blow, the fraudulent 2010 survey exposed in detail. The jury listened as Jake explained how the signatures were forged and the company didn't even exist. Sophia's defense crumbled. When pressed under cross-examination, she stammered, unable to explain why the HOA used fake documents. After 2 tense days of deliberation, the jury returned. The judge's words still echo in my mind. The court recognizes Mr. Harrison as the rightful owner of the disputed property. I had done it. I had beaten them. The aftermath was sweeter than I could have imagined. Legally, I now own parts of 5 luxury mansions. The solution? Each homeowner had to pay me rent for the portions of land their homes occupied. Sophia's monthly check for her pool and tennis court arrived like clockwork, $2,000 at a time. Nathan grudgingly paid $1,500 for his garage. Elena forked over $2,500 for her lavish suite. Even Jackson and Bethany had to sign lease agreements with me. The same people who once called me a nuisance now wrote my name on rent checks. Neighbors who had doubted me now shook my hand, calling me an inspiration. News outlets covered the case as a victory for ordinary homeowners everywhere. Looking out at my reclaimed land, I realized it wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about justice, and about proving that no matter how rich or powerful someone thinks they are, property lines don't move just because they want them to.